Sensing betrayal, I moved my assets in secret. 2 weeks later, my wife's divorce plot exploded in her face. Daniel had always believed that his relationship with Melissa was solid, built on shared dreams, laughter, and a deep trust that he thought would never falter. From the moment they met, there was something magnetic about her humor, her confidence, her ambition. It all drew him in. For the first few years, everything seemed effortless. They had their usual bickering over movie choices, their inside jokes, and quiet evenings at home that felt like the world outside didn't exist. The rhythm of their life together was smooth, predictable, and comforting. Daniel often found himself marveling at how seamlessly their lives had intertwined, especially after they married. His friends would joke about how perfect they seemed, and he couldn't help but agree. They shared everything: plans for the future, small dreams, and even mundane details like choosing what to have for dinner. Their love was simple yet powerful, and Daniel never once questioned it. He would find himself daydreaming about growing old together, reminiscing about their wedding day, and imagining the family they would one day have. It was a life he couldn't wait to live. In those quiet moments where they sat side by side, Daniel couldn't help but feel blessed to have found someone like Melissa, his best friend, his confidant, his partner. But little did he know that perfect life was slowly beginning to unravel. It all started subtly, with tiny cracks in the foundation that he failed to notice. The phone calls that Melissa started taking in private, the sudden change in her behavior, the way she began to pull away. It didn't make sense to him at first. How could something so solid, so real, begin to change so quietly? Yet it was happening. And Daniel would soon find out that the life he thought he knew was about to shatter in the most painful of ways. As the days passed, Daniel began to notice the subtle shifts in Melissa's behavior, the changes so small yet so telling that they crept under his skin like a slow-burning fire. It was hard to pinpoint at first. The moment he realized something was wrong, she started carrying her phone everywhere, something she had never done before. It used to sit idly on the coffee table, forgotten, until she'd pick it up without a second thought. Now, she kept it close, even when she was folding clothes or walking to the kitchen. The silence between them grew, not from anger, but from an unspoken distance. One evening, jokingly, Daniel asked, "What are you running? Some secret spy ring?" Melissa laughed it off, offering a vague explanation about work emails. But there was something in her eyes, something that flickered for a moment, a flash of something he couldn't name. That was when the first seed of doubt was planted. Days later, the password appeared, an innocuous thing. Really, just a small change. But it didn't feel innocuous. It felt like a wall going up between them. And when Daniel asked why she had suddenly decided to lock her phone, her response was so rehearsed, so perfect in its vagueness, that it sent a chill through him. "Just for security," she said, as though it was the most normal thing in the world. Then, the phone calls. Always outside, always in another room, leaving Daniel in the silence of unanswered questions. He tried to dismiss it, tried to tell himself that work was stressful, that maybe she just needed space, but the weight of her evasions grew heavier with each passing day. The spark they once shared, the easy laughter and flow of conversation, was gone, replaced by a distance he could no longer ignore. Daniel's heart twisted with a painful realization. The woman he loved seemed like a stranger. Daniel could feel the tension gnawing at him as he lay awake that night, his mind racing with thoughts he couldn't escape. Something was wrong. He had never been one to jump to conclusions, but every little detail, every glance, every evasive comment was adding up to a picture he didn't want to see. He had tried to ignore it, to push the nagging suspicion to the back of his mind, but it was becoming impossible to ignore. His gut told him there was more happening than Melissa was letting on, and the more he thought about it, the more the pieces seemed to fit together. He had to know the truth. The next day, while Melissa was out, Daniel decided to take action. His hands shook as he opened their joint bank account online. What he found, less heart pounding in his chest. Over the past month, there had been a series of small, unexplained withdrawals. Nothing too obvious, but enough to raise alarm. It was like watching the slow, deliberate unraveling of everything they had built together. The money wasn't going to bills, it wasn't for groceries, there was no clear purpose for it. His pulse quickened as he processed the information, the weight of what it meant sinking in. This wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate. Someone had been planning something. And Daniel realized with chilling clarity that it wasn't just their finances at stake. It was their future, their trust, their life, together. With a coldness that surprised even him, he made the decision. He would protect himself, no matter the cost. The moment Melissa brought up the subject of their finances again, Daniel knew. It wasn't casual anymore. It wasn't just about budgeting or planning. This time, her tone was sharp, rehearsed, as if she had been waiting for the right moment to say those words. "Have you thought about organizing the bank stuff?" she asked, her eyes avoiding his. It was the same question she'd asked before, only this time it felt like a warning. His stomach churned, and the air between them grew thick with tension. Why now? Why was she so insistent on talking about their finances when they had always kept things separate, free, and easy? Daniel set the knife down, his hands suddenly cold. He knew he had to confront her. This wasn't just about money anymore. His voice was steady, but his mind raced. "What's going on, Melissa?" he asked, his words measured, his gaze fixed on her. "You've been bringing this up over and over, and it feels like there's something you're not telling me. Is there something we need to talk about?" Her reaction was immediate, a flash of panic in her eyes. She froze, her lips parting, and for a moment it seemed like she was going to speak, but instead, she just shrugged. "Nothing's wrong," she said quickly, almost too quickly. "I just think it's smart to have everything in one place, for emergencies." Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. Emergency? It was the same excuse she had used before, but now it felt like a calculated attempt to throw him off track. He could feel his trust cracking, the sharp sting of betrayal already beginning to seep in. His instinct screamed at him that something was coming, something big, and he needed to act. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a game he wasn't prepared to lose. The day Melissa finally filed for divorce, Daniel's entire world seemed to shift beneath him. The papers arrived like a bombshell, heavy and cold, with demands he hadn't anticipated. Half the house, his savings, his investments, and even spousal support, an amount that made no sense, considering her own successful career. It wasn't just the divorce. It felt like an attack, a betrayal of everything they had built together. The calculated nature of it left him reeling. How could she do this? After all these years, all the trust they had shared, how could she just erase it all with a signature? The tension in the air was unbearable as he sat across from her at the mediation table, his mind spinning, his chest tight. He felt every ounce of love he had ever given her slip through his fingers like sand. Her lawyer was brash, demanding, as if this was just another transaction. But Daniel wasn't going to let it go down like that. As the lawyer flipped through the papers, Daniel's lawyer handed over a stack of documents, proof of everything, proof of the asset transfers he had made weeks ago, before the divorce papers were even filed. The silence in the room was deafening. Melissa's face drained of color as the truth hit her. The game had changed, and for the first time, Daniel wasn't the one who was losing. Daniel could feel the tension rising in his chest as he sat there, silently scrolling through Melissa's social media. He had to know he couldn't stand the uncertainty any longer. As he scrolled, a knot tightened in his stomach. There it was, Jake. The man who had been nothing but a distant shadow in his mind, now front and center, liking Melissa's posts, commenting with subtle affection. It was all too much. He had always wondered about the strange bond between them, the way Melissa spoke about him with that almost too familiar tone, the way she defended him when Daniel raised an eyebrow. But now, the truth hit him like a slap across the face. A picture of Jake at the same cafe Melissa had been at when Daniel overheard her strange conversation. The same day, the same moment. His heart raced as he scanned more posts. There were comments from Jake, innocently disguised as encouragement, but Daniel knew better now. One comment in particular stood out. "You've got this." It sent a chill down his spine. He wasn't just a friend. He was someone more. And then it hit him. Jake wasn't just a friend or a co-worker. He was the man who had been fueling Melissa's plans. The one who had been guiding her to take everything, to leave him with nothing. The realization sent a wave of nausea through him. This wasn't just a marriage falling apart. This was a cold, calculated betrayal. Melissa wasn't just planning a divorce. She was planning to destroy him. But Daniel wasn't about to let it happen. The game had changed. It was time for him to take control. The moment Daniel saw Melissa and Jake together, it was as if time itself had frozen. He had suspected, feared, and now he was witnessing it with his own eyes. He had parked a block away, hiding in the shadows, his heart pounding in his chest. There they were, standing outside her apartment building, talking closely, their body language telling a story he hadn't wanted to hear. They were too comfortable, too familiar. She wasn't just talking, she was leaning in, laughing, as if they shared something private, something that didn't belong in the world Daniel thought he knew. He watched as they exchanged a quick glance before getting into Jake's car. His blood ran cold as he realized they were leaving together. Without thinking, his hand gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, as the car moved by instinct. He followed them, not too closely, but enough to keep them in sight. The further they drove, the heavier the knot in his stomach became. His mind raced. The hotel. Of course, it was the last place he wanted to see them together. They pulled into the hotel parking lot, and Daniel parked across the street. His stomach twisted into knots as he watched them walk into the building, hand in hand, completely oblivious to the devastation they had just caused. In that moment, something inside him snapped. He had been living in a fog of doubt, but now it was crystal clear. Melissa wasn't just distancing herself. She was already planning a future with Jake. And the trust he had once placed in her was now shattered beyond repair. The betrayal stung, but more than that, it made him feel foolish. He had given everything, and now he was left to pick up the pieces of his own heart. But this time, he wouldn't let her destroy him. He wasn't the victim anymore. He was the one in control. The days following the discovery of Melissa and Jake's betrayal felt like a blur, but one thing was clear. Everything had changed. The silence between Daniel and Melissa was deafening as they sat in the mediation room. He had already prepared for the worst, bracing himself for whatever demands she would throw at him. But nothing prepared him for the emotional weight of seeing her so composed, so cold. She was no longer the woman he had married, the one who once laughed with him late into the night, the one who shared dreams of a future together. Now, she was a stranger, sitting across from him, demanding half of everything he had worked for. When the documents were presented, and her lawyer's confident tone shifted to confusion, Daniel's heart raced. The proof was undeniable. The asset transfers he had made weeks before were irrefutable. Everything had been legally sealed, everything locked down. It felt almost surreal. Melissa's face drained of color, her mouth opening and closing as if she couldn't quite process the reality of it all. Her lawyer faltered, and in that moment, Daniel knew he had won. But the satisfaction didn't come right away, was muted by the bitterness of her betrayal. As she glared at him, her eyes filled with rage, Daniel remained calm. Her anger felt hollow now, like a last-ditch effort to regain control of a situation she had already lost. As she stormed out, he felt a mix of relief and sorrow. She had lost more than just him. She had lost everything she thought she could take. And for the first time in months, Daniel felt at peace, knowing that his future was no longer in her hands.